Alright, so we won the die roll here, and have a hand of basically all removal spells that I think we should probably keep. It is 3 spells, 4 lands. We can cast everything on our hand. On the downside, we have no pressure, besides potentially this Foundry, or we can make a 1/1 spawn with the Warping Well, but that's not normally the best mode of Warping Well, but we'll see what we're up against and see if that's the direction we want to go. So, Monastery Swiftspear. So we may actually just want to go ahead and get rid of this Swiftspear here. And the question then becomes, which of these spells do we want to use to do so? I actually kind of like using the Spatial Contortion. Grasp of Darkness would cause us to take 2 pain. Warping Well, we could actually counter some sorceries out of the stack, potentially. Hordeling Outburst comes to mind. Dragon Fodder, potentially. And the other option is we can just pass, leave up Warping Whale, and then plan on Spatial Contortioning. And so that's reasonable as well. So out of those options, I think we want to start with the Tomb of the Spirit Dragon. And I think we can just go ahead and pass the turn here. Plan on using Warping Well on something like a Dragon Fodder. And then if our opponent just attacks, we're willing to take the 1 here. And it may be that this allows our opponent to save the Monastery Swiftspear, but we'll see. We'll see what's going on. So it's going to be an Abbot, actually. Interesting. So Abbot reveals Pia and Kieran, and so we have the option now of actually which of these 2 creatures we want to deal with. Kind of still inclined to deal with the Swiftspear. And yeah, let's just go ahead and Spatial Contortion the Swiftspear. And okay, we drew an Eldrazi Mimic. So I think we just want to go ahead and play our Matter Reshaper here. Certainly it could die to something like a Fiery Impulse or even an Outnumber. But I think we want to get a creature on the board just in case our opponent plays something like Nissa. We want to have some sort of pressure, and Matter Reshaper is capable of putting pressure on Planeswalkers. And next turn we're probably going to play, or at least potentially play, 2 of our 2-mana spells. So let's see what our opponent's up to. We know that this deck typically plays Hordeling Outburst, and sometimes also has Nissa in the main deck. So it could be one of those 3 drops. Yeah, it's a Hordeling Outburst. So we weren't able to position our Warping Well in such a way that we could counter this Hordeling Outburst. So we'll just have to hope we have enough resources here to be able to deal with it. And we actually drew Thought-Knot Seer. And I kind of like the idea of playing Thought-Knot right away. Just because we don't know what's in our opponent's hand. Alternatively, we could play Eldrazi Mimic, but I think we just want to play the Thought-Knot and see exactly what's going on here. So let's do that. And okay, so we see the Hordeling Outbursts, and then we also see Reckless Bushwalker and Fiery Impulse. So, not a bad hand for our opponent. The most powerful card is the Hordeling Outburst, but if we take the Outburst, it opens up the door for Fiery Impulse into Reckless Bushwhacker and a pretty big attack. I still think we want to take the Outburst, but we're going to be taking a good chunk of damage this turn, and we need for our opponent not to draw an additional spell to go ahead and get rid of our Thought-Knot Seer. So we're basically allowing our opponent to do what they want. With this Fiery Impulse, we'll likely take care of the Matter Reshaper. Or our opponent is just going to play a little bit more conservatively, which can potentially work to our advantage here. Electing not to play the creatures out at all. So that's an interesting decision for sure. So I think we just want to play a little bit conservatively. We can leave up the Grasp of Darkness, and we're just going to play out the Eldrazi Mimic here. No need to do anything too quickly. And we'll see if our opponent wants to pull the trigger on the Reckless Bushwhacker. Okay, looks like the answer to that is no, not yet. Alright, Mirror Pool does come into play tapped. So we could hold up removal, which makes some amount of sense for sure. I don't think we need to play this Matter Reshaper. I think we can just pass here. And our opponent's getting somewhat flooded, which is normally bad news for the red aggro decks. And now we could sort of start to gain some life with this Tomb of the Spirit Dragon, which is nice. So I like our spot here. Now we've got double Tomb of the Spirit Dragon. We can maybe start actually getting in some attacks. So, yeah, why don't we play our Matter Reshaper and think about if we want to go ahead and attack here. I think we probably do want to get in there. Yeah, alright. Gotta start getting in some damage at some point, and yeah, our opponent's just gonna take 6, so we're in a pretty commanding position at 22 life. Have Warping Wail, which can be used as a counterspell. That's kind of the mode that most people forget about, but it gives us some insurance against something like a Hordling Outburst into a Bushwhacker here. And so we know about 2 of our opponent's cards. Let's just go ahead and gain some more life. And I don't know how aggressive we really need to be here. Yeah, let's just go ahead and attack with these Matter Reshapers. Seems like the safest line that we can take. We always want Matter Reshaper to trade whenever it happens. It's great. So if our opponent uses a Fiery Impulse or just trades an Abbot or Goblet tokens for our Matter Reshapers, we're happy with that exchange. And yep, just let that happen. There's a Transgress the Mind, so we can use that right here. And we know that it has at least one target, the Reckless Bushwhacker, and it looks like our opponent has got a little bit unlucky here just to be drawing all lands. But we can't really complain about the situation from our side. And it could be that an additional removal spell was drawn here because it does look like the Fiery Impulse is going after Thought-Knot Seer. So yeah, let's just go ahead and gain a little bit more life while holding up our Warping Wail. And I'm expecting another removal spell here. Okay. Thought-Knot Seer officially is down. That being said, we've still got plenty going on. And we can actually go ahead and counter this dragon fodder, which I think we want to do. Alright, no attacks from the abbot. And so we've got we can basically let our lands take over this game. But let's just go ahead and continue attacking with this Matter Reshaper. Alright. Let that trade happen. Put a land onto the battlefield. And now we can actually activate our Foundry to make 2 1/1 flyers. So that's pretty good. Our life total is also very high. We've got Mirror Pool. We've got a ton of stuff, really. So, yep, let's make 2 1/1s. And no need to make our Eldrazi Mimic into a 1/1. And then gain some more life with our Tomb. Bearer of Silence, that's a pretty good one. So we can make our opponent sacrifice their last creature. Yeah, let's do that. And it's basically impossible at this point for our opponent to win. It's just kind of going through the motions. Yeah, there it is. Okay, so game 1 is in the books officially. And we've actually got some pretty good stuff that we can look at in terms of sideboarding. Languish is definitely good against this type of deck. Duress, yes, we want Duress. I think it's better than Transgress the Mind. So we can take out Transgresses. Also, I think Mimic is a card we can probably get rid of after board. Kalitas, I think we want to board it in, even though this deck is a little bit light on black sources, so that we can't always necessarily cast it on turn 4. So maybe we just want to board in 2. But I do think they're better than Thought Knot generally. Don't need Self-Inflicted Wound. Ultimate Price is fine. I think it's actually better than Grasp of Darkness, so we can make that trade-off. And we could board in Ruinous Path to get rid of Nissa, because Nissa's a pretty annoying card to have to deal with. In terms of what else we want to take out, we could shave on Thought Knot since we're on the draw. It's a little bit of a liability. Shave 1 Smasher, one Thought Knot. And this seems reasonable. Still got a bunch of removal in our deck. And got an edge in the late game. It could be that we're actually supposed to take out Bearer of Silences. I haven't played this deck enough to know that for sure. But I really like Bearer a lot, so maybe that's just my personal inclinations causing me to keep the Bear in, but it could be right to take it out for game 3, depending on what we see from our opponent. And it looks like we're drawing both of our Kalitas, but we do have to keep this 6, and we're going to put this Bear on the bottom. So we're just kind of looking to draw lands, possibly a removal spell in between. And Kalitas is fine, but this deck does have a lot of tokens, and it only triggers when a non-token dies. The other thing is that we have a lot of pain lands in the deck, so we are pretty likely to take some damage from our own lands. So we'll see how things go. If we curve out, our chances certainly get better, but we'll see what we're up against. Alright, so taking a Rose, up against double Abbot, looking for something like a Languish, but yeah, we'll see. Outnumber, so we do know that our opponent's playing the go wide token strategy as we suspected. And it looks like we are going to get to cast these copies of Kalitas, or at least one of them. So that's probably good news. But if our opponent has one of the big 3 mana cards like Nissa here, that would be bad news. Also, Hordling Outburst would be annoying. We'll see. Our opponent plays Abbot. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense because they already played a fetch. Normally you play Abbot and they're not attacking, so doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but let's just keep on keeping on. Not sure if that was a misclick or what exactly happened there, but we are going to go ahead and play this Matter Reshaper. Yeah, not too sure. It looks like our opponent just missed 3 points of damage. So hopefully that doesn't decide the game, because I don't like little things like that making the difference. And Pia is a good card to have here. It puts us in a world of trouble. But we are going to get to trade this Matter Reshaper off, which is pretty good news. So we'll see what we get. Another Matter Reshaper, that's great. And so we drew the perfect card. Just drew Languish, so we basically have the option of playing Kalitas, and we can set up a Languish, or we can just Languish right now. I kind of just want to go ahead, Languish right now, and we don't take as much damage. So let's do that. And we put our Mirror Pull onto the battlefield. So even if we were at three less life, which we probably should have been, I think we'd still be in pretty good shape considering we top decked our Languish here. But our opponent has a Hordling Outburst. And now we can deploy Kalitas, which should take over the game unless our opponent starts top decking runners, but I think we're in a pretty commanding position. So we're just going to play Kalitas. We could also play out the Hangerback Walker. I think we probably just want to in order to make best use of our mana, even though it is only a Hangerback for 1. So, okay, Dragon Fodder. So, probably just going to want to go ahead and attack with Kalitas on our next turn. If our opponent trades, say, 3 Goblins for it, we still have the second one. So, we don't really mind that exchange. If our opponent does not block, then we're just gaining 3 life, and we still have a creature that's pretty good on defense considering what our opponent has right now. So, yep. We now drew Spatial Contortion, which is a great draw. It gives us a removal spell so that we can actually keep our Kalitas in play. If we would be able to keep our Kalitas in play if our opponent has had a non-token creature in play. But since they don't, we basically can't kill any of their guys to make a 2/2. So we're just going to have to be content with dealing 3 here. The Mirror Pool we can use to copy something. If we get another land, we could basically copy this spatial contortion. But anyways, we're in good shape either way. The mirror pool is kind of an interesting one because obviously copying Kalidas doesn't really accomplish much since it's legendary. So we'll see what our opponent elects to do here, but I would imagine that without something like a Nissa coming off the top, it's going to be hard for them to do too much. So yeah, I think I just like making the hanger back bigger, and we can continue our attacks with Kalidas. And I wonder now if our opponent is going to go ahead and make that block with everything. I guess we'll have to see. Nope. Okay, no block with everything. So that's fine. And we're in a pretty commanding position. We can sacrifice the Blighted Fen to get rid of a Goblin, which we may just want to go ahead and do, even though it doesn't do a whole lot. I don't know that the Blighted Fen is going to really improve over time this game, so leaning towards just go ahead and sacrificing it for a Goblin token. And then we can look at starting to get in there with this Hangerback Walker on our next turn, potentially. So yeah, let's just go ahead and use the Blighted Fen. Say goodbye to one of your precious tokens. So yeah, I think we're safe to attack with both creatures here. Our opponent probably should be looking at blocking with everything, but we can see exactly what's in our opponent's hand. It's just a land. So yeah, let's just go ahead and attack with both. Alright, so it looks like our opponent might finally be blocking with everything, and we're blocking with 5 creatures, which is going to be enough here in order to get rid of our Kalidas. But we have our backup one, which we're just going to play. And we know our opponent doesn't have a removal spell in hand. So if our opponent draws something like a Roast, the game would be at least somewhat interesting, because our Kalidas would be shot down. We would still have a Hangerback Walker, though, which is going to be hard to deal with, but it looks like Zergo was the draw for the turn. And that's actually playing right into our plans, because if we want to go ahead and kill Zergo, we can, and we can make our Kalidas even bigger. And that's going to make the Kalidas even more difficult to deal with, because now all of a sudden a card like Roast doesn't actually kill Kalidas if it has 6 toughness. And we're also going to be gaining 5 if we choose to go that route. So, okay, so now we have 2 removal spells we can potentially use, but let's go ahead and start and see how our opponent wants to block our creatures. There really aren't any good blocks. Even if we didn't have removal spells in hand, there's triple blocking the Hangerback Walker is really not where you want to be. Yeah, our opponent's just looks like making a chump block here, but we're actually going to go ahead and get rid of this Zergo, and we can just sacrifice the zombie to the Kalidas in order to make it a 5/6 and protect it from any sort of removal we might anticipate our opponent still having. And so, yep, it looks like that's the match.